We know it's not always easy finding passion and purpose. We know sometimes you can feel more overwhelmed than inspired. But we also know that connecting people to jobs that matter really matters to you. And that's why we're here for you. We know you need top talent to build your business, so we connect you to more than 33 million eager job seekers across the region. And we know strong relationships are essential. We speak your language.
Hello Job Street สวัสดีค่ะ
Hello Job Street
and provide experienced local support. We also know you want powerful data and insights to empower you and make you look smart in front of your boss. We know while hiring is never simple, our innovations and products make it easier. From delivering better value for your investment to standing out from the crowd. We've got you covered. And we know you like results. We're 3 times more successful at placing talent with employers. How do we know all this? We're your hiring expert and the #1 trusted talent partner in Asia. Start hiring with us now. We know you want to.
Morning and welcome everyone to the third and final webinar brought to you by Human Resources Online in partnership with Seek Asia. Today's topic on our Driving Digital Transformation to Future-Proof Your Business webinar series is the secret tools in your human capital strategy, upskilling and reskilling. We've been talking about that a lot. Now, for those that have just joined us for the first time, you can download the Decoding Global Talent Report for other great insights. And before we start the webinar proper, I'd like to do a technical check. As always, can everyone see and hear me well? You can say hello or hi on the chat. And our tech team, support team is on standby. So if you're facing any audio or video difficulties, please visit the chat panel to write to team and we'll get you some help right away. Right, let's get started. I'd like to run through some housekeeping tips and tricks to make the most of experience with us. We will be having a panel session where I'll be interviewing 3 panelists, which I'll introduce in just a moment. You can then look forward to a live Q&A session. And now many of you have pre-submitted your questions during the registration, so we'll be sure to bring those into the conversation. Now, for those who haven't, fret not. Please feel free to start sharing your questions right away. I know you're all very eager to, get your answers. You can do this by sharing your questions in the Q&A chat box on the right of your screen. So even better, you can vote for your favorite question so it has a higher priority in getting answered. We did receive a lot of questions prior to the event, a lot. So we'll put those up for voting. And before we get into the panel session, let's try and see how the polling system works, right? And also, the most active participant has a chance to win an iPad Pro. This will be open to registrants to attend any of the 3 webinars based in Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Hong Kong, Philippines, and Indonesia. And winner of the prize will be selected after the completion of this webinar, which is the 3rd webinar. And the winner of the prize will be determined by being the most participative during the webinar series, most number of questions asked. So yes, ask lots of questions and we'll try to get to them. So as I'm introducing the panelists, we're going to go through our first poll question, right? And the question is, what is your #1 challenge in upskilling, right? Is it content? And content in this case means the right kind of training that you should be providing. Is it systems and software? Is it leadership support? Is it budgets, right? So as we await the results, let me now welcome our panelists. First, we have Paul Thomas, Chief Human Resource Officer from Seek Asia. In his current role, Paul is responsible for developing and executing HR strategy in support of the overall Asia business plan and strategic direction. He's an experienced HR practitioner, bringing more than 25 years of broad regional experience in sales, manufacturing, and general management across multiple industries. Next, we have Rung Jaismut, Head of Digital People Partner, Central Retail Corporation. Rung is the head of Digital People Partner, and she works closely with business and tech leaders to provide insights, facilitate resources, and create capabilities required for digital transformation. And Rung's passion lies in diversity and inclusion. She's an active guest lecturer and has shared experiences at NIDA Business School. Last but not least, we have Jasprit Kaka, Chief Human Resources Officer, AXA Philippines. And as part of the country leadership team at AXA, Jasprit leads a team of HR professionals to lead the creation of a strong and purpose-driven organization culture focused on empowerment agility. He's an experienced business and HR leader with experience across Southeast Asia, India, Hong Kong, and UK, and he remains passionate about digital transformation, EX culture, and strategy. So, welcome everybody. Okay, I also have to submit the webinar. So let me have a quick look at the poll results, right? Okay, so I think Rung, she'll try to join us as quick as possible, as soon as possible. But okay, do you have a? Let me look at the poll results. Where is it? Oh, okay. Content and leadership support are very high. Okay, content is leading at 71. It's the numbers are still going up, the 71%. Next is leadership support, also overtaking content, and budgets being 67%. It's always budgets, isn't it? Right? But okay, so content being the first one. So I'm going to ask this the first question right now to all the panelists, and hopefully Rong can join us in just a moment. So what is the state of your current skills strategy? What are some of the highlights and lowlights
Yes.
of
All
how it
right.
is
Perfect.
of how
Thank
it's evolved?
you.
Rong, welcome.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi,
Hi.
everyone.
Thank you for joining us. I'm
Finally,
just
yes.
okay. This is working in the new norm, right? Technology. And I'm just about to start with the first question, Rong. And what is the state of your current skills strategy? What are some of the highlights and lowlights of how it's evolved from pre-pandemic times? But I'm going to ask this to Jasprit first.
Hi, Frida. Can you hear me well?
Very well.
Perfect. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. I hope everybody listening in is safe and taking all the precautions. So there's just that note to start on. And to your question, Frida, I think so. The way I would describe the state of skill strategy in AXA Philippines, there are two main elements to it. There is a top-down element. What does my business want? And then there is a bottom-up element. What is it that people are seeking? So top-down, bottom-up both have multiple inputs coming from it. Top-down, for example, I have my global strategy of AXA. I have a local strategy of AXA. I have the macro environment. And then bottom-up has people's information from performance management, from engagement surveys, and so on and so forth. So all of this come together for us. And they give us our skill strategy or priorities in two different fields. One, it gives us skills that we need to drive the change, to drive the business forward. So this could be, for us, for example, insurance knowledge, product knowledge. It could be digital, initiatives. It could be customer-related initiatives that we have. So and everything that we need to move our business forward. And the second, which is probably becoming more and more important even prior to the pandemic times, are the skills that help us cope up with this change. It's because it's an uncertain world. It's a world full of ambiguities. So you need a lot of skills nowadays to be able to just cope up with this change. So this could be things like change management and transformation. This could be leadership storytelling, visioning, and so on and so forth. But also your question was, how has it evolved during pandemic? The things that help us cope with change, mental wellness, resilience, these are the things which are now at the forefront. We cannot survive without these skills in our employees, in our managers, in our leadership. So that's how I would kind of briefly describe the state of skill strategy for us here in AXA Philippines.
All right. I'm going to ask this to Paul next. I think the poll results are finally closed, but now leading is leadership support. So as you're answering the question, think about what people are saying as well. So Paul, over to you.
Thanks, Frida. Happy to be here. I hope everyone's keeping well. I know different parts of Asia is in different states of lockdown. So in any case, echoing what Jasprit just said, let's all stay safe and stay well. So to answer the question, interesting, Frida, that you mentioned that I was kind of, my hunch was saying that leadership would be pretty high up, right, and that's kind of come true. So what is Seek Asia doing in this space, right? So I guess the right way of summarizing it is still evolving our thinking in this space. The pandemic has basically, created an environment which I think the world over people are trying to grapple with it, and we are no different. We are no different. We are at the core a digital company, and as such, those digital skills is front and center in terms of what we want to build in terms of upskilling and reskilling our workforce. And so there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of support. I'm happy to say that in Seek, we get a lot of leadership support, and it's backed up by budgets as well, something else
Right.
which was in the poll.
Right.
So it's going well, but it's being rethought, reimagined at this stage. We are looking at skills that we need going forward. The pandemic has clearly made us want to sit back and rethink in terms of our learning strategy. How we deliver learning is another area as we come out of this and people start talking about returning to office. We are likely to use a hybrid model going forward. And what does it mean from a learning standpoint? So these are the kind of things that we are giving a lot of thought to, Frida.
All right. What about you, Rong? Highlights and lowlights?
Yeah, I mean, okay, first of all, hello. And yes, when it comes to the highlight, I would say the pandemic. I think we have reached year two of this the business unusual. And from having the sense of awareness, like before when we look at the time before it strikes us in 2019 or even prior to that, we had a sense of awareness of the disruption. But I believe a lot of companies still we also at Central we try to adapt and executed different models or even initiatives to prepare for the change. But when pandemic really hit us hard, then there was a sense of urgency,
Right.
more of the very reactive approach, and even to find way to survive in the time that it's so uncertain, and there are a lot of things that we have not thought that it could really affect our business overnight. And then the time that we already prepared prior to that pandemic, it really helped us understand now with the sense of paranoia how important it is. And with that, the highlight is the sense of urgency really help us map out what things that matter and really understand, try to even listen more and observe more. Just to put that into a quick summary of the low light and the highlight.
Right. I know what you mean. Like everybody think that something was going to happen, and we're always preparing, and then boom, it hit us. Yes, we've got to put our, our plans into action, right? Jaspreet, insurance is one of the most pandemic-proof sectors, yet one of the most impacted by the lack of face-to-face interaction, right? How have you kept the AXA workforce up to date with the relevant skill sets?
Thank you, Freda. And I would actually hardly say that any sector has been pandemic proof. Yes, there is much more visibility about our business now. Our sales and product teams were able to convert their selling process to virtual very, very quickly. But make no mistakes about it, this pandemic has taken heavy toll on the insurance sector, especially on our employees, because that's our most critical asset is our employees. And having to deal with the virus, having to deal with the workload, having to deal with their children and families and so on and so forth, it's taken a quite a toll. And so in this environment, how have we kept our people up to date on relevant skills? I think there are two parts to your question. So first, how have we kept them up to date? To be honest, it was not that difficult for us in that sense, Freda, because number one, we were already quite ahead in our digitization journey in the last several years. It's been a focus area for us for the last many years, and therefore it was not very difficult for us, for our people to be used to this. All our people have e-learning access already, so we already have a kind of democratic learning offering available to people. Plus, learning as a culture, it's also not new for us. People our people now for many years, I think Rung was alluding to this in her remark, we've been preparing for this. We didn't know what we are preparing for, but we've been preparing for this. And
Now we
our
know.
people, now we know. And our people realize that learning is not an option anymore. Even before the pandemic, our jobs were changing on a daily basis. And when
Yeah.
not maybe not daily basis, that's exaggeration, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Each job from one year to the other looked very, very different. So if you don't learn, you will not survive. And therefore we had it in our KPIs of our people to to have the learning. So I guess from a culture, skill, capability point of view, it was not that difficult for us. What was difficult, and which was surprising for me from the poll, what was difficult for us was some of the content of the new skills becoming very, very relevant. You know, um, I mentioned earlier mental wellness and resilience. I probably just take these two, and just the importance of both of these topics today is far higher. Well, it was important earlier as well, but the realization is far higher in the last 18 months than it has ever been in the past.
Right.
Managers having to deal with mental wellness issues of their teams and employees. Never in the past had it been done at this magnitude. So
Right.
what we did earlier this year globally, actually at AXA, we released a series of short videos on educating all our managers. In Philippines, we
Right.
covered 100% of our managers, awareness about mental wellness, how to deal with issues, how to have a conversation with your people, and lots of work, around it. And I don't know if I can go on for another couple of minutes,
Sure.
but
Sure.
it's okay. And the other piece that I mentioned earlier, Freda, was resilience. Resilience today, mental resilience, physical resilience, is probably of utmost importance than it has ever been. So now we've worked with a couple of partner organizations. A few weeks ago, actually, we had a seminar for top 25 of our leaders, because we believe once they realize how important this is, it is automatically going to flow. So,
Right.
a seminar about understanding where they are, where their own mental,
Right.
and physical state of mind is. How can they be individually resilient, then resilient as a team, and then being resilient as an organization. So I think these things have been at the forefront for us in terms of focus, importance, and gathering various resources available around the world, actually,
Right.
to make some of these things happen.
And I think not only that, right? It shows that the company cares, right? I think it's so important right
Absolutely.
now. How would I continue to be of value to the employees and vice versa. Now, Rung, your role is very interesting in that you provide insights to business leaders on capabilities for digital transformation. So, what kind of skilling data are you churning out, presumably in-house, right, in order to identify the hottest skills, right? Central needs to be the hottest e-tailer.
Right. Okay. So that's a very good question, Freda. And because with the background that I have not become led as head of HR before. So I have extensive experience in executive search, which really give me the exposure of the skill sets outside of and with from the various organizations, and then I moved into talent development. So with that, and in the new way of work, to become a really data insight driven, and really, the decision making that driven by those broad data. I think that's really important. And with this COVID-19, we have to, like, we were forced to a bit with the competitive and very dynamic environment to step back and to really take a broader view of not just from the enterprise data of a very usual ERP systems that we
Right.
have to look at, like the generations or the learning hours. I believe that would not be enough. And because with the virtual working from home, the way that it's not just a very, it's not enough anymore to just put into the e-learning programs and put it out there on the shelves. We have to really understand and takes a much more collaborative and coordinated approach between the businesses within the group. because within COVID-19 and the virtual environment, we need to we need to embrace diversity and also inclusion. And that when just mentioned about to be able to sense the environment, to be a sensing leader, or even to really work closely with the business leaders to understand, like the kind of data points. But then before going to those data points, I think, and I believe that we have worked it on the how, like how we work with this environment and how can we survive and emerge even stronger after COVID-19, which I believe it will stay with us for the next 2 years. Like it's a
Yeah.
really evolving journey.
Yeah.
So with that, we need to understand also how we lead, because from being a very top-down command and control of the programs that some people or some team design together with the top team, with the leaders team, we need to involve the individuals
Mm.
to be able to understand their needs, even they are the high performers or they're not the performers, but they're not realizing how much of the potential they could unleash from the
Right.
capabilities.
Right.
So those are the things that the data points would be much broader, and it has to be more personalized and not just based on AI or the systems, but it will be much more on a kind of like one-on-one and in-person's interaction. That's what I believe, and we've been doing.
Right. Okay. I've got a question here for Paul. And this is I want to find out from Paul, right? One key challenge faced is coming up with an upskilling, reskilling strategy that caters smoothly to a remote and hybrid workforce in terms of needs, capabilities, that sort of thing. As someone who develops strategies for employees across Asia, how do you tackle this new world at Seek?
Yeah, I think there's no easy answers to this question as well, Frida, right? I think we're all learning on the fly.
Yeah.
I think it's clear that classroom learning, even though there's still a place for it, we basically have to embrace the fact that, remote learning on a, as and when needed basis, people are time compressed, time poor
Mm.
these days, right? And so the ability to learn when you can, where you can, is going to be a big part of this learning strategy going forward, right? So we have had to pivot in terms of our strategy. We had what we thought were well thought through leadership development programs. We wanted to create a common leadership DNA across the organization. And all that was going well until we got hit by COVID, right?
Right. Right.
All of a sudden, we had to basically work with partners, delivery partners in this instance. And it was a rethink. We had to basically, embrace technology. And that was, again, experimentation. We basically learned with our partners. I wanted to also, Room was talking about the need to be, you need to be data led, right?
Right.
And so, and you need to have those listening mechanisms in place as well. As
Right.
we made this transition from classroom teaching learning to a lot higher reliance on technology tools,
Right.
and to make content more snackable, if I may call it that,
Mm. Mm. Bite size.
bite size, right? We kept listening to participants. Is this working for you? And we spent a lot of time asking for that data, processing it, and then course correcting as we went along. And I think that's what the world is going to look like. Learning and experimentation will be the way forward.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I would say, Frida.
Right. And you can't say it's a broad sweep as well, because even if you've got something and technology wise, right, we're all living in different countries right now. And the broadband ability, that's also a factor, right? When we're trying to do this e-learning, and we're at different levels of
Yeah.
speed,
Right.
right?
So absolutely, Frida, I want to comment on that, right? And that's an issue, right? We have a footprint. So Seek Asia, you will definitely know the two brands, JobStreet
Yeah.
and JobsDB, right? We've got a
Right.
footprint across countries,
Mm.
and in that mix we have got countries with highly developed IT infrastructure, and
Mhm.
others less so.
Mm.
So if you talk about the learner's experience, right? We
Right.
talk about
Right.
customer experience, we talk about employee experience. I would say that their learning experience can be impacted by something as simple as Wi-Fi connection, bandwidth
Right.
availability. So we're very conscious of that.
Mm.
And we are looking at ways and means how we can actually help them in that
Mm.
regards by way of allowances and what have you, just to give them a boost in terms of their connectivity,
Right.
recognizing the fact that Asia is not the same across the region. There are differences we need to cater for.
Yeah.
These are minor things that can make or break our ability to deliver good content.
Mm.
Mhm.
Okay. So speaking of which, right, around that as well, Jasprit, how easy or how difficult is it getting people to actually take time out for learning, right? So learners already complaining about too much screen time, Zoom fatigue, how do you get them to prioritize learning?
Yeah, absolutely. There is so much conversation about fatigue, Zoom fatigue, MS Teams fatigue.
Mm.
But interestingly, Frida, if you look at the surveys, the amount of time people have spent on social media and things like Netflix has gone up exponentially. If there was so much screen fatigue, so it's actually it's a very
Okay,
serious matter.
okay, you
It's
got
not
me.
really a question of it's not a question of screen fatigue. It's a question of,
Right,
is the content relevant?
right,
Is the content exciting? Can I go back to my learning course with the same excitement as I would go
right,
to my Netflix series?
right.
And actually, so again, and the other end of the spectrum is actually dealing with things like too much work. I think that's equally important. So what we've been doing, just to share a couple of examples, is we've been very conscious in our communication that respect the boundaries. It's not that just because you're online doesn't mean your work starts at 8 and it doesn't end
Mm,
until midnight or something.
mm,
But that's a work in progress,
mm,
and then companies have to make conscious efforts to make sure this is working. Like, for example, in this mid-year conversation, June, July, we
mm.
encouraged our managers to have the reverse conversation, asking what projects need to be dropped, instead of what projects need to be completed, so that
Right.
people get more time. 2 months ago, we launched with quite a bit of fanfare something called Unplug, and the genesis of Unplug came exactly from what you're asking, the
Right.
question that people are saying there is too much work. So we give every team 4 hours every month to
Mm.
unplug, and they can use that time for learning. They can use that time for
Right.
bonding as a team. They can use
Right.
that time for just themselves, upskilling themselves, creating a strategy presentation, just
Right.
to clear up some time from their calendars, because it's non-stop meeting after meeting after meeting.
Right.
And then the other part of it is, how do I make it fun? How do I make it relevant? How do I make it more interesting and exciting for people to join? And in that, it's very important to walk the talk.
Mm.
If they see their top management doing it, or their senior leaders doing it, like I did 2 courses last year on digital transformation.
Mm.
Fantastic learning for me. But
Mm.
then we also used it to share that it's okay to take time to develop yourself. And then
Right.
we have various programs. We have something called a learning power hour, where there is a lot of fun and excitement around learning. We have really fun quiz based learning, or learning based quiz, where we
Mm.
will send people some courses in advance, and then there'll be fun quiz, and they can win some goodies, and that creates a lot of energy and excitement. And actually, even before pandemic, we were doing a lot as I was mentioning earlier, we were doing a lot of these things globally as well as locally in AXA Philippines.
Mhm.
So that's kind of helped us make people interested and excited. We've
Mm.
made curated courses for functions. So an IT course will look different than an HR course, than a finance course. And our next step, where I'm sure Seek can help us in some shape or form, is to see how do we personalize it. Going in the direction of hyper personalization. Difficult, but that's where
Mm.
we've set our next site at.
Right. And I think maybe what you should start doing is that learning is only available on Netflix, right? And everyone will then make a point to learn. Maybe that's a strategy. Okay, and I'm giving that to you guys, right? But also I think when it comes to learning, I actually took last year and on my own time, right, to learn something that's going to be, design thinking, which I thought was going to be applicable to my life. It's nothing to do with my day job, but it has a lot to do with my day job, right? And I think that's the time that you also invest in yourself. Brung, with the portfolio of in-demand skills changing so fast, right? What's your strategy to support these employees who are at risk for possessing outdated or sunset skills like radio? Just kidding.
Why? Wow. This one is has been the hot topic, not just for the pandemic time, but I would say since the technology disruption, the internet and other things that companies across the globe, we all realize about the
Mm,
reskill and upskill and the sunset skills, right?
mm,
One thing, and like even with those who are very much relevant to the technology or the data knowledge, and they have the capabilities, we need to admit first that we still working in the unknown
right.
because of this like the new way, and it's a new reality. But then
Right.
for those who I think it's also with the objective, and at first we really need to understand and to sync the business strategy with the way that we would develop our human capital.
Mm,
And for us at Central, and for me when I stepped in to be part of this Central Digital entity, that means we are combining the IT organization, which has been with us for the past 19 years.
mhm,
And then we also uh, create or really integrate and make it, like this tech entity under Synergy Innovation or CTO office, and then Center Group Online or the digital marketing organization, for them to work together. Definitely, there will be some people who have been with us for the longest time,
mm,
that like maybe they are working on certain things which has been evolved with the retail systems, but then they hold so much of the insights and the knowledge of the
right.
different stages of the businesses and the
Right.
market. So that's why when we look at these resources, it has two ways to look at it. First, we need to develop and deploy a kind of human-centric approach. That
Right.
means if we create the awareness and like the sense of growth for them,
Mm,
do they have the will to grow with this environment?
mm,
Because then it's going to be very hard when it comes to being able that we try to top down, but then not really understand and to be sensible about the environment. Because the new teams that come in, they know the technology, but
mm,
they might lack the pieces that's so
right.
important. So
Right.
that's why the it's so important that to really take care of these people, you have to work with the human centric and also the dynamic approach. So when I talk about the dynamic, it's more about be able to adapt rapidly, because even the trends that are emerging today
Mm,
may not last for next year.
right.
Or you have to really leverage among your domain experts within your communities in the
Mm,
organization, or outside the organization. Like here we have a team together with the HR, and we call this as a PMO team, to always benchmark about the gaps and the challenges between our internal organization and the external. Like what are the gaps and the things that we believe that it could be a sunset, then how could we help them? So since COVID-19 last year, we've been doing a lot of focus groups, like
right.
every 2 weeks, that there will be a kind of like continuous focus group and following up session to really
Mm,
make sure that we understand the environment and our people enough.
Right. Okay. Okay. Human-centric and dynamic approach. And so it's like, people, there are people with the skills and then there's technology, but you also don't want to lose that as well
To
because there's
find the
some
balance,
to
yes,
find
of
that
the
balance, right?
insight and the knowledge that they bring to the table. And
Right.
with the technology piece, you need to really find the balance.
Mm,
Yeah, because at the end of the day, human it still play at the top when it
yeah.
comes to relationship and the kind of
Right.
emotions
Right.
that the world needs today.
Right. Yes, we do. Paul, in your view, what are the must-haves and nice-to-have leaders should note when adapting their learning strategies to the new normal?
Yeah, Frida. So this is a fascinating discussion we are having, right?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to echo some of the things that my fellow panelists have been talking about, right? In this new world order, cliched as that may sound,
Mm-hmm.
right? You need, Room talked about balance, right? Jasprit talked about the fact that look, there's both the hard skills and soft skills that we need to be aware of, right? They're both evolving, right? And they're both evolving in a manner which the pace of it evolving is at a rate which we never expected. The pandemic has basically just turbo boosted this, right? And in a strange way, I think, it is forcing us to be in a state of preparedness that we never were in before, right? So that's good. I view that as good. I'm a glass half full kind of person, right? So in terms of what is required, the need to have and nice to have, for me, it's a combination of both soft and hard skills
Right.
that we need to find ways and means to embed into our workforce, right? So in terms of the soft skills, Jasprit talked about the fact that, coping strategies, right?
Mm,
We talked about Zoom fatigue, and Six done a whole bunch of things. We had something similar, Jasprit. We had a switch off day, so that was just to cleanse ourselves from Zoom. We use Zoom, right? Not a pitch for Zoom, right? I like Microsoft Teams as well, and yeah, so it was just so necessary. We took 6 weeks off, where we said that we're going to stop all cadence meetings, and
right.
we basically told managers and teams, go away and think about, are these meetings necessary? Can we make a 2 hour meeting be a one hour meeting, or can we make it disappear altogether? Can we merge?
Mm,
Can we eliminate? So, and the team came back with all sorts of ideas, right? So,
mm,
what's the lesson there, right? Listen and involve your people as
mm,
we co-create this future that we are looking at, right?
right.
So resilience, mental health, stuff that Jasprit talked about, right?
Mm,
That I would put in the bucket of the soft skills that are need to have, right? And digital skills. We are a digital company, right? Is
mm,
something that we absolutely need.
mm-hmm,
And that applies for even if you're not a digital/tech company, that's required, right?
mm-hmm.
So that's what we are helping. So I'm of the belief that people generally have got a willingness to learn new things,
Okay.
and
Right.
we as a company need to basically enable that, right?
Right.
And so we are looking at both sides of the equation, the soft skills and the hard skills. So for me, that falls into the need to have, and we need to be consciously aware of these two dimensions as we try to address this, I guess, this learning strategy going forward.
Right.
I'm not sure what's nice to have, but
Right.
those are definitely the need to have in my mind.
Okay.
Can I make a quick comment,
Sure.
Frida?
Sure.
Thank you, Paul, for sharing that example of 6 weeks off of cadence meeting. And I think I can relate this to some questions being asked on the chat box as well, because this kind of an initiative requires strong management support. It cannot happen.
Yeah.
This is not an HR engagement program that can run by you and your team. So first of all, congratulations to you guys for making that big step. And I think there is a lot of information and data now available for people to be able to go and convince their top management so that they wake up and smell the coffee if they are not already moving in this direction. So just to answer several questions on this topic, use data to your advantage. There is a lot of data available, a lot of research available now on this topic, which really highlights how all these things are necessary, how slowing down is necessary, how resilience is necessary, and and therefore the associated investment in it. So I just wanted to make that comment and congratulate Paul and his
Right.
team.
I got one final question before we open the floor for questions, because we have a lot of questions and I know they're very keen, and it's not just to win the iPad Pro, I'm sure. And just a comment as well, Paul, you were saying, Zoom fatigue or whatever the fatigue may be. So when you stop doing that, please don't go to Netflix, because you're going to get tired from that as well, right? So, okay. So just a final question, and then we'll open the floor. If you had a magic wand and there's one skill that you could magically build into your entire workforce from frontline to leadership, what would you pick? I'll get Paul to answer first.
I think no surprises for me. It's resilience, and I'll be cheeky and add adaptability.
Right. Okay. Jasprit?
Resilience all the way.
All the way. And Rome?
Yeah, I mean, I will not repeat. So I would add to for the ability to have a growth mindset every day, like to have a great and growth mindset at all time, because
Right.
in this type of environment we could be really depressed at some points, because a lot of problems, and at certain point we need to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, because otherwise resilient, it's super strong as a weapon, but on the other side, vulnerability, it's also a weapon, can be a very powerful weapon as well, if you know how to connect and engage with that skills. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay, we're going to open the floor for questions right now. This is one here from Nurul Afni. She says, how can a company manage upskilling and reskilling in this difficult time and tight budget? Always that fine line. Jasprit was nodding, so I guess I'll give this to Jasprit first, and the rest can add on.
I think it's really about prioritization. For me, a quote that I heard in one of the podcasts, it always stays with me, that it's never that I don't have the money for it, or it's never that I don't have the time for it. It's always that this is not my priority, and
Right.
therefore I will spend my money somewhere, or I will spend my time somewhere else. So I think that's the most important thing. And as I was saying earlier, there is enough and more available now to make a case for investment in this. But also, very importantly, we lose sight of the fact that a lot of other parts of our business are actually running on much lower expense now. Nobody's traveling. When we used to have trainings in the past, especially the leadership trainings, there used to be more expense on travel than on the training itself.
Right.
So all of that has gone away, at least for the foreseeable future, that has gone away. So we make a lot of saving over there. Where do you want to put that money back in? You invest in. Again, it goes back to the question of as a business, what is your priority? Is taking care of your people your priority? Is helping your people learn and grow your priority? And if it is not, then it is an HR's role actually to shape that conversation, or to influence that conversation using data, as I've been saying all along. So just my 2 cents on that.
Right. And just, I don't know if anybody else want to add on to that, but before that, I have another poll question, and we'll look at the poll answers later, results later. But the question is, do you have a skilling framework? Right. So this is our question at the moment. Yes, no, it's in the pipeline for launch. It's not as formalized as we would like. So if you can go to the poll questions, and in the meantime, I'll continue with the other questions, and I also have to take part in the poll. Okay, fine. Okay, so anybody would like to add on to that first question, or yes,
Frida, if I
Paul?
may, right?
Yes.
In addition to what Jasprit just mentioned, right? When you have scarce resources, in this case, money, budget constraints, right? I think you need to make sure that whatever content you're developing is relevant. That may sound very obvious, right?
Right.
And to what Room was saying now, for the last hour or so, is you got to make sure you got the right data to back up the decisions you're making in terms of what type of training to provide your people. Because otherwise you can have unnecessary spillage, right? In terms of leakage, right? In terms of you spending money on things which are not relevant to your people. So you got to spend a lot more time thinking through that. The second thing I would like to mention is harness the power of your people. at times we oftentimes underestimate the skills that are already present within the system. I used the term co-create earlier, right?
Mm, mm,
So the default setting is either people in the HR function basically goes and creates training programs, or they basically go and partner with a training provider to develop that, right? I think it's time we also look at skills within the organization and how we can co-create with those resources that are already within the system. And the bonus of doing that is there's skin in the game, right?
yeah.
And these people are closest to where the problems lie, and you're developing something. Going back to my earlier point, which is going to be super relevant for the needs of the organization. So that's what I would add, Frida.
All right. I've got another question here. I'll look at the poll results later. This is from Tan Chu Gig. He said, staff and managers always say no time for learning due to workload and shortage of resources. How do you deal with this? Anyone would like to take that role?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's always like the questions, right? And back to the conversation that we've had before, it's about to be relevant. And every time when the employee sees the program launched for them, they will always ask like, what's in it for me? And if you need and if you can probe further to understand the nature of the audience or the learners, I mean, from my experience, our tech team, they would not want to go into a kind of like 1 day program anymore, because during the day, if they have to move away from the platform, I mean, e-commerce platform, that means it's going to be a big investment, or they will look at the ROI. While for them, it's always have to be meaningful, very insightful, and it could finish within 1 or 2 hours.
Right.
While the IT team, they want to go and focus deeply on the topic of learning. Like recently, we launched, and because the way that you need to understand about when it comes to being relevant, and to the point when Paul addressed about knowledge sharing, to leverage the internal insights. And this is for me and for at Central, it's been one of the most engaging training programs, because we leverage from our executives, from our high performers, or even from our front lines who have changed and really shaped the new way of shopping experience through like live stream, through their creativity on delivering different products and services during COVID-19. And it brings a lot of traction and attention from all levels, because we want to hear from the real, authentic experience and not maybe from the theory. People, you compare it to Netflix or other reality shows. These days, I believe the employees, they want something that they can relate to at their everyday's work and their lives as well. So you need to really define, and based on the variety of the jobs and your learners, and you design the experience from there. I think that will create more learning hours. I mean, that's based on my experience.
Yeah. Gone are days of day long. I mean, I guess it's okay if it's face to face, but when it's online, right, people don't have the capacity for that anymore. Paul, you wanted to say something? No.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that, so when I think training, I think content. So, and content can be like what Jasprit mentioned, it can be Netflix content. That's content as well, right? And I was just reflecting on what Jasprit said. It's true. People say that they are Zoom fatigue, but at the same time that they think nothing of, at the end of 10 hours of Zoom, they go, binge watch for the next 5 hours Netflix, right? So how do you reconcile those two extremes, right? But at the end of the day, the content needs to be engaging. The content needs to be relevant. You got to create content, in this case, learning content, in such a way that, people will go look for it.
Right.
And in which case, then, it's not a question of I don't have time, I will make time. Right. But having said that, everything that we have discussed around making it snackable, bite-sized, learning where you want, when you want, those kind of principles need to be applied as well. So a combination of those two things, I think, is absolutely
Right.
critical for it to work.
Okay. I'm going to the poll results at the moment, and it's kind of scary. I guess it's a combination of the people attending today would be HR, managers, and maybe also staff also listening in. But the question is, do you have a skilling framework? At 117, 38% say that no, they don't have any skilling framework. And then it's not as formalized as we would like. Right, that's at 34%, and at 19% after that, 18% is that yes, they have a skilling framework. So that's that's only less than 20% that has a skilling framework, right? And so it's in the pipeline for launch. That's nice to know at 27%. So on the way, like as they say, Malaysia akan datang, is coming, right? So that's any thoughts around that? If you don't have a skilling framework, because that's a large percentage, 40% no. How scary is that you don't have a skilling framework? Who would like to take that?
Wow. I mean, then it it will lead to a question like, what is the major challenge you're facing when you? I mean, for us as the HR professionals or the business leaders, it should be at the top of mind to really have the framework in place at least, like
Mm,
before you really design the action plan.
mm,
So what has been on your way? Like, what is it that like being the roadblock that, or is it because there are so many skilling frameworks and you kind of like struggling in finding or identify the right ones for your organization? I think it's
mm,
fine to not be able to make it formalized,
mm,
because as I would believe in a more practical and dynamic approach in that we sense and we can shift, but then we can create a big short win, or even to look at a more sustainable model. But then, yeah, I mean, but if no, and that's the majority, there will be more questions to probe to understand.
right. Okay. And leading to what you just said, Rong, I'm going to ask these questions that have come out. And I'm going to combine the questions. Keith Chi and Tan Chu Gig, he said, how do you manage the transition of the responsibilities of the employee when reskilling, upskilling them? And to continue with that, right, he says, how do we change employees' mindset about the importance of upskilling and to have continuous learning even during this difficult period? It's scary when you don't think you need to learn needs new skills during this period. But yeah, how have you? I'm sure you've experienced that. All of you, like, I'm just stuck in my ways. I'm not going to learn new things. How do you manage that? I've always done it this way. Jasprit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. It's a great question, and thank you for highlighting that question, Frida. I think one, even prior to the pandemic, so for example, to encourage or to make people realize that continuous evolution is required. We used to run a very comprehensive program, and at the beginning of that program, either me or one of my colleagues used to give an opening talk, and in that opening talk, I used to show them the video of the launch of Google's DoPlay, I think 3-4 years ago, something like that. And when we used to show them, it was already a year, when it was launched, and people's jaws used to drop looking at a robot having a conversation with a random human being, displaying empathy, emotion, everything.
Right.
And those kind of moments are light bulb moments for people. That when they see that the world has moved there, if I don't move at least here, I'm going to be left far behind. And I literally, we ran tens of those sessions, and without fail, I saw people's jaws drop. So I guess the point that I'm making is, awareness is the most important thing. Making people aware where the world is moving and why it is important to reskill. At the end of the day, if somebody still doesn't want to reskill, of course, it's a personal choice, and then it will start showing up in their performance. It will start
Yeah.
showing up in their day-to-day interactions, and so on and so forth. But I think, to me, awareness, probably to begin, if you're starting really low, raising the awareness of the common denominator of the organization is probably the most important thing.
Right.
I would say.
Right. Because I just want to add on, there was a question that came in earlier during registration is like, how do you get the blue collar workers in, right? When they're not comfortable on the computer and all that. And you were saying like, find ways to first create that awareness and then the attention, interest, desire, action kind of process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, yeah.
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 And if I may add a bit, because you also need to understand the sense of the culture within the organization, because
Right.
somehow with the visual that you set up a kind of case, the very successful case, or the kind of impact that it would become if you become obsolete from the workforce. But another way is to really identify the ambassador or the champion for
Mm-hmm.
that cause, or it could be the CEO of the company or the top leaders or the ones that always perform as a role model.
Right.
Like it's like the idol that in your work environment, who are those people? And you really assign them and work with them to design the experience of, and to really engage with the strategy to foster the learning culture in your
Right.
organization.
Right.
That would be another powerful approach to look at.
Right.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, Frida, very quickly to what Brung
Mm,
just said, right? Yeah, so, you know, you wait when people see good things happening to people who invested in their own development.
mm-hmm.
That is a strong, powerful message
Mm,
that, for me to get that, I need to do more of the same,
mm.
right? And so I guess what I'm saying is recognition programs around people who have successfully completed learning programs, make a big deal out of it, right?
Right.
And then, again, put data behind it, right?
Mm,
Track the progress of these people over a period of time.
mm.
And if you can show that people who have invested in their own professional development
Right.
have fast tracked their careers, it then creates a compelling story, a reason, a call for action for others who like to be where they are in terms of career attainment, and they realize that for them to do that they need to do exactly what this person did. So
Mm.
I think that storytelling in appropriate settings coupled with recognition for people who invest in their own professional development is another way of getting this going.
Right. We've got time for about one or two more other questions as well. And just something that, one of the things that I've learned is to look out for the weak signals, right? And the weak signals is what's happening, what's changing regulatorily, what's happening in the environment, what's happening to that space, right? Because I've seen, working in a radio station, I've seen, what do you call it, AI radio interviews being held, right? So you think, where where's the future for me, right? So that's one thing you have to think about. And here's the reality: will these weak signals one day be strong signals? And maybe when it's a strong signal, it's too late, right? Okay, this is a question from Lim Fang Hui. She says, what are the relevant skills and most important skills in this digital world and pandemic? Is it important to have genuine? It is. I think it is important to have genuine discussion between the employee employer to drive the company further. Any thoughts from the speakers? What are the relevant skills? I guess, industry perspective. Who would like to take that?
Uh,
Okay.
okay,
Um, yes,
Roman,
please,
you
Paul.
go ahead.
After you.
Oh,
After you.
okay. Okay. So yeah, I think if you ask for an industry lens to this, Frida, then we are in the digital space, and we need more of that, right? So look, we are both. We need digital skills, but we are also an organization that needs to ensure that the customer facing roles, that's high touch roles,
Right.
that needs to be equally well developed as well, right?
Right.
But in general, what we need more of is the digital type skills, right? So
Mm,
we had a town hall recently, and a similar question was asked of me, and I said that any role which has got a prefix digital,
mm,
right, is what we need more of, right?
right.
And so that's what we are investing in. We're about to roll out a digital proficiency. So we're doing testing. People have an opportunity to basically test where they are against where they should be. And then we basically offer them training programs to close that gap. and they have an ability to retest at will to see how they are progressing. So, and we are linking that up to our career development framework as well. So that's what we are doing. But if you ask me what we need more of, a lot more digital skills across the organization.
Okay, I think that's a nice last question as well. So I'll get Rong and Jasprit to talk about it. Rong first. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, for us, we are in the still in the ongoing journey of the digital transformation. So with that, we have hired a number of experts in the field to join us, which I would believe the technology skills and the cognitive skills that they will bring to design the whole space with us. It's our I think we are doing okay, but when it comes to the soft skills that could really help us survive and to be able to continue to grow, those are the things that for me it's quite a big challenge because we need to really make this as a practice across the board about being able to empower our people and delegate like the kind of skills to be able to delegate and communicate with clarity,
Mm.
you know. And for us, from the tech team, or from the C-suite leaders to the tech team to the execution team to the frontliners, we need to be able to empower them to make to let them feel that they're not just the staff, but they are in the driver's seat
Right.
to help us build this transformation together. And this is quite new for some of the jobs because they are more focused on commands and orders.
Right.
And then you can look at basically for our cashiers, they have to adapt the skills on e-ordering, you know, like the different campaigns, the different e-payment and the channels that they need, like customers can just contact them, or they need to be more very well versed about the different products and applications. So these are the things that if we cannot, we need to create the enabler for our people to understand the relationship between their jobs and cross functions. So that's why the skills for me to focus is more on the soft skills like the communication skills and the interpersonal skills other than the
Right.
tech, because for me transformation is very much on the people side.
Right. Interesting. Interpersonal skills. Jasprit, we'll get you to close.
Yeah, just last word. Echo completely what Paul and Rung said, and I would just add to it because a part of the question also was about should we have employers and employees to have conversation, and the answer to that from my perspective is a resounding and overwhelming yes. The more conversations we have, the more things surface, and unless the things surface, you cannot resolve them.
Right.
We ran a campaign last year on mental wellness. The name of the campaign was "How Are You?" And the only one step in the campaign was that you have a conversation with somebody, your team member, your superior,
Right.
your spouse, anybody. Just ask them how are you, and listen to them with empathy and intent,
Wow.
because that's where conversation becomes deeper and
Right.
solutions start to emerge.
Right. Thank you so much, everybody. Paul, Rong, and Jasper. We have run out of time. We've actually gone over time. So thank you, everyone, as well, with all your questions. And so for me, some of the takeaway was, the human aspect is really important. Be human, the human centric, and it's dynamic. It's going to be changing every day, but be prepared for that growth journey. Now, if you have any more questions, please go to seekasia.com and visit the employer's blog. Remember, you also have a chance to win an iPad Pro if you have attended any of the three webinars. The winner of the prize will be selected after the completion of this webinar, which is the third webinar. And the most participative audience member will be winning an iPad Pro, and he or she will be reached out a week after this webinar by HRO via email. So, and Seek Asia will ship the prize to your doorstep. So the lucky person, look out for that email happening in a week's time. We also have a survey for you to fill, so you can see the link to the survey. Please head on over there and give us your feedback so that we can make these sessions more beneficial for you. Thank you again to all our panelists and everyone joining us virtually for being with us today. We hope this session has given you some HR insights, as this is a crucial component in any organization. Definitely gave me a lot of insights. A reminder that you can download the Decoding Global Talent Report to get more insights. And I just want to tell everybody it's Q4, right? So let's make the rest of the year, which is about 90 days before the year ends, fruitful and productive. Until then, have a wonderful rest of the day. And as always, stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Mr.
Thank you. Thank you,
Frida.
Frida.
Bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Thank you, Frida. Bye.
Bye.